up, world? R.I.C.H coming right back at you. And today, we're talking about a story that should make people take a hard look at how fast we destroy somebody's name before all the facts come out. This is about Stefon Diggs being found not guilty after having to carry one of the most damaging accusations a person can face. And before we even get into the details, I want to say this clearly because this is a sensitive subject. Any real victim of assault deserves to be taken seriously, deserves to be heard, and deserves justice. But at the same time, false or unproven accusations destroy lives. And people act like there's no damage done just because the person is found innocent eventually. That's not how real life works. Because by the time a person is cleared, their name has already been dragged through the mud. People have already picked sides. Social media has already found them guilty. And the internet never really gives you your reputation back.
Well, New England Patriots wide receiver Stefon Diggs is in trouble with the law tonight. Aaron Parsegan of CBS News Boston has the details.
Stefon Diggs facing accusations that could land him in prison. The Patriots' standout $69 million wide receiver has been instrumental in the team's turnaround success this year and has been called one of the greatest free agent signings in Patriots history. Diggs is now facing charges of felony strangulation or suffocation and misdemeanor assault and battery. This stems from an incident on December 2nd. In newly released court documents, a woman who worked as Diggs' private chef says during an ongoing text exchange about money owed, Diggs became angry and smacked her across the face. She says Diggs then tried to choke her using the crook of his elbow around her neck and held her until she felt like she could have blacked out.
What do you think these allegations and charges do to this team that has such high hopes entering the playoffs?
The commissioner, Roger Goodell, could place him on the commissioner's exempt list, which would essentially be a paid leave. That decision, though, only falls to Goodell. The Patriots have no say in that.
The New England Patriots said in a statement that Stefon categorically denies the allegations. We support Stefon. Diggs is a star on and off the field. He leads the team in catches and yards, and he and his girlfriend, rapper Cardi B, recently welcomed a child together. These allegations come as the Patriots have one of the best records in the NFL and are playoff bound.
Stefon Diggs is one of the few players on the roster with playoff experience, so it would be interesting to see how the offense is able to navigate his potential absence.
Think about the timing of this whole thing. This story hit during one of the biggest moments of his career. And that is why you cannot tell me timing doesn't matter in situations like this, whether people want to admit it or not. Public accusations hit different when they come at the height of somebody's success. Now let's talk about what happened in court, because that is where this case started falling apart. According to reports and commentary from people following the trial, the accuser's credibility took major damage on the stand. The defense brought up deleted text messages, inconsistencies in her story, and questions about what information was left out early on. Once a jury starts feeling like they can't trust parts of your testimony, everything else you say comes under a microscope. And that's what people need to understand about court. This ain't social media where somebody makes a claim and everybody runs with it. This is a place where your story gets tested under pressure. And from everything that came out, it sounds like her story couldn't hold up under that pressure. The jury looked at the evidence, looked at the testimony, and found him not guilty.
Verdict, as the court has recorded it. Upon your oath, you say that the defendant is not guilty of the count of strangulation or suffocation and not guilty of the count of assault and battery. So say you, Madam Forelady?
Yes.
So say all members of the jury?
Yes. All right, thank you. Jurors, please be seated for a moment. Everyone be seated. Jurors, I told you during this trial and in my instructions that the verdict was your responsibility and your responsibility alone. Jurors, I want to thank each of you for your careful attention and your service throughout this trial. This case has involved a heightened level of public attention. Despite that, you have remained focused on the evidence presented in this courtroom and the law as I instructed you. That is exactly what is required, and it is essential to the fair administration of justice. I recognize that serving as a juror in any case can be demanding and it have required additional patience and sacrifice. The court is grateful for the seriousness and integrity of your approach. You may simply decline. Whether or not to speak is entirely your decision. All I can say is that on behalf of the court and the parties, thank you again for your public service, and you are now excused with the thanks of the court.
Coming back from that, you could see the emotion on his face. That was not just winning a case. That was about finally breathing after living up under a cloud that could have changed his life forever. And this is the part people play with too much nowadays. People throw around life-destroying allegations like it's everyday drama. And they forget that there's a human being on the other side of that. This man has children. This man has family. This man has a career he spent his whole life building. And all of that can be destroyed by accusation before a single fact is proven. That is a very dangerous reality we living in today. Now, with that said, I also think this situation teaches a hard lesson about boundaries. Just because you have access to women, money, or attention, it don't mean every situation is safe to enter. A lot of athletes and entertainers get themselves in trouble because they start blurring the lines between business and personal. When emotions get involved, things can turn ugly fast. That don't mean somebody deserves to be falsely accused. It just means that people with status have to understand that every decision they make can come back 10 times harder. And we are starting to see more and more cases like this. We are seeing more situations where people make very serious accusations. And then when the details come out, the story looks very different than it did in the beginning. But here's the part that bothers me most. When somebody is found not guilty, there is no real consequence to the damage that was done to them publicly. The headlines don't get erased, the comments don't disappear, the memes don't stop existing, and people still look at you different even after you clear. That is the part of these cases that never gets talked about enough. We live in a time where accusation alone can turn into a conviction in the court of public opinion. People don't wait for facts no more. They wait for viral clips. And once social media decides who you are, it is very hard to fight your way back from that, even if a real court says you're not guilty. Now, let me be clear again, because this matters. Supporting due process does not mean disrespecting real victims. You can believe real victims should be protected while also believing that false or weak accusations should have consequences too. Both of those things can exist at the same time. And if people cannot understand that, then we lose in balance as a society. Now, as far as Stefon Diggs personally, I think this experience probably changed him forever. You don't go through something like this publicly without it altering how you move, who you trust, and how you handle people around you. And honestly, it should. Because when you reach that level of success, you cannot afford to move carelessly around people who have different expectations or different motives than you think they do. That's not paranoia. That's reality. And a lot of men don't understand that until they sitting in the courtroom watching their entire life hang in the balance. Now, let's talk about the bigger social issue here. There has to be a point where we start asking how many people have been destroyed publicly before the full story of it even comes out. Because the internet never really apologizes. People will drag your name for months, call you every name possible, and then quietly move on when the case falls apart. But you still have to live with what they said about you. You still have to explain it to your family, your kids, your friends, and your future business partners. And that is why you could see the emotion when that verdict was read. That was not just relief. That was months of pressure leaving his body all at once. Now, moving forward, I think this should be a lesson for every athlete or entertainer and every person who has access to fame or money. You have to protect yourself, your circle, and your decisions better than ever before. Because one bad situation can turn into a public nightmare overnight. And once the story is out there, you don't control how people see you anymore. At the end of the day, the jury made their decision. He was found not guilty. And that verdict matters whether people like it or not. And if we want a fair society, then we have to respect the process, even when it don't fit the story people made up in their heads. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe. Establish Rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.